that turned Tom into a superstar.
It's alright if you love me. It's alright if you don't.
The guy who made that song the great anthem that it is the gentleman who joins us this morning. Benmont Tench has been playing keyboards with Tom Petty since they were pre-teens. 11 years old they met. And he's a founding member of the Heartbreakers in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's also recorded with dozens of other acts, including the Rolling Stones, U2, Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan. The number of records that Benmont has played on numbers in the hundreds. But until now, he's never put out a record of his own. His first solo record, You Should Be So Lucky, comes out February 18th. We'll play you some of it in a little bit. On it, many of Tench's friends, including Don Was, Ryan Adams, Ringo Starr, and his oldest friend, Tom Petty. Benmont Tench, welcome to the Bob Rivers Show. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. Congratulations. What a fun, wonderful career with a lifelong friend.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was in the recording studio with Tom and Mike last week and looking around going, holy cow, how did this happen?
You are still in wonderment on your own career. How cool is that?
It's great.
Now, I want to ask you about Breakdown because it's a song that really is this beautiful lick on, I think it's a Wurlitzer piano or something like that.
It is.
And you are the hook on that song.
I'm playing the hook, but that's how he wrote it. He wrote it on a piano.
So
I don't know if he wrote it on a Wurlitzer, but he wrote it on a piano.
So I was going to ask you, how does Tom come to you with a song idea and you flesh it out?
He generally comes into the band and just shows it to us on the guitar, or if he wrote it on the piano, he'll just show it on the piano, and we'll just kind of take it whichever direction. If you just listen to his voice and the instrument that he's playing the song on, the song just kind of reveals itself.
That's interesting that you say that. It's sort of like a sculptor would say that you see a big block of granite and there's
somebody inside sees
there's David in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there's David. So you just kind of like your job is to just not crack the marble.
Do you remember meeting Tom Petty at 11 years old?
I remember being 11 and being in the music store where he worked, and there were these older kids that meant they were like 14 or something. Right. They worked in the music store, and they were intimidating, and one of them was blonde, and that was Tom, and they were just really cool, and they had bands they were in, and, they had Beatle-length hair.
And you were a Beatles fan,
cool
right?
Kids, big Beatles fan.
At 11?
Oh, hell yes.
Oh, you only had to be 6 to be a Beatles fan.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, I was 10 when they played the Ed Sullivan Show.
Right.
And they just kind of broke the whole world into 3D and color for me,
And did Mom give you piano lessons or something like that? And you were fascinated with how did you start on the keyboards?
I started because I had an inferiority complex. I had a cousin who was my best friend, and we were 6 or 7, and he could do everything at 6 or 7. He could play football, he could play baseball, he could do all this stuff that I wasn't any good at. And we were messing around with the piano at my house, and he could do that thing where you roll your knuckles over the keys and it goes da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I just went, in that instant, I'm going to do something better than my cousin.
Wow.
And so I sat down and started monkeying with the piano, and I fell in love with it. And my parents got the woman that taught my dad piano when he was a little boy wound up teaching me, and she was a sweetheart.
And so now a great keyboard player, and I'm a fan, and I play a little bit.
Yeah, I know you play.
So a great keyboard player is one who has licks that are beautiful. His signature, maybe somewhat original, but always influenced by somebody. So what did you try and make your style?
I listened to Floyd Kramer, the country player. I loved him from when I was a little boy. And then when I heard Nicky Hopkins, who played piano on so many Rolling Stones records. The Rolling Stones had the best piano players. Ian Stewart, Nicky Hopkins, all these guys.
Benmont Tench.
Nicky Hopkins.
Yeah, really.
Al Cooper.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. So you actually got to play with the Rolling Stones. How big was that?
It was big. I got to play on a couple of tracks on a couple of records, and it was just so much fun. And the first record I played on, I overdubbed on. And the second record I played on, I was set up in the studio sitting about 5 feet from Charlie Watts. Yeah. And that was just magical. just magical.
The highlight.
I loved getting to play with those guys.
And I've got to ask you about Ringo, because the highlight of the Grammys for me was when Ringo did Photograph, and it's you on keyboards, Kenny Aronoff, who is an old friend of our show, on drums, Peter Frampton, who we've known for years, on guitar. When does Ringo, give you a call and say, "Hey, it's Ringo, would you like to come play at the Grammys with me?"
Well, actually, I got to correct you on that. I didn't play at the Grammys. What I did was I played 2 nights before at an event where Ringo got an award from the David Lynch Foundation, and everybody else in the band was the same, except when the Grammys came, I was otherwise engaged.
Oh.
So how do you call Ringo and say, Grammys? Nah, I'm busy that night. I got to babysit my friend's children. I got something to do.
It killed me. I felt awful about it.
I bet. Well, the video that's out is...
But every time I get to play with Ringo, it's a thrill, and it's not just that it's Ringo and he's a Beatle. It's that he's a great drummer and he's a great guy.
He's undersung, isn't he? He's underappreciated as a drummer.
Amongst the people who really know, he's not underappreciated, but there are people who don't seem to understand it. And just remember, they're called the Beatles. The first syllable is beat. The drummer is important in that band, and it didn't happen for them until they got that guy.
That's right. Benmont, all of Tom Petty's hit records are amazing. And the parts you play on those records, I would say they're conservative. They're subdued. You're not soloing. It's not like a Yes. You're not like Rick Wakeman all over the keyboard. And yet they're so important to the song. What's your philosophy about that?
Thanks. That's kind to you. I don't have the technique to play like Rick Wakeman, but Rick Wakeman's a hell of a player. But I've always liked, like I said, the Rolling Stones are the best way to learn to play rock and roll piano. And I've always loved the way that the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, all of those records had keyboards. And they're playing for the song. They're not playing for the solos. They're playing to serve the song. And Ringo's the best example, because you can listen to Beatles songs like Things We Said Today. There's not a drum fill in that entire record, Things We Said Today. He opens the hi-hat up a little bit on the bridge and then closes it down when it gets back to the verse, because it doesn't need a drum fill. It doesn't need the drummer to go, look what I can do, or emphasize anything. It's about the song.
I cover a bunch of your songs, and they were easy for me to learn. Thank you for that.
Yay, good. There's a guy named Spooner Oldham, who's the keyboard player and songwriter from the South, and co-wrote "Do Right Woman" for Aretha Franklin, and played organ on "When a Man Loves a Woman." And Spooner calls it the 3-note dumb hum, and that's what you're looking for. I think that's his term for it. That's the part that you want to play. You want to find the 3-note dumb hum for the song. And that's what Tom found when he wrote Breakdown. And that's what I always look for.
Well, you're amazing. And you stretch out on your new record, and the live stuff you do with Petty, we hear you stretch out. Benmont Tench, You Should Be So Lucky, comes out February 18th. We'll highlight it for you. We'll do a little break. I know you got to go, Benmont, but we'll play some of it on the air when we come back. Nice to talk to you, sir.
Great to talk to you. Take care.